Hey, John Brown, third grade students. This is Mr. Connor. Bessie and I made it back. We came here. We're going to stop and talk to you at school today. But you know what? I peeked in Mrs. Eco's room. Nobody was there. I peeked in Mrs. Shelton's room, banged on the door a few times. Nobody was there. No cars in the parking lot. I know something's going on here that's got y'all at home, and hopefully everything's good about that, and we get that taken care of. But I'm sad to miss you. I know there's a virus going on. I read about it in the old newspaper. But I was here to talk about the Walk Around Rathdrum. But you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm just going to turn the time over to Mr. Worthen, and I'll let him take you on the Walk Around Rathdrum. It's not going to be a walk around Rathdrum. It's going to kind of be a drive around Rathdrum. But you know what? I think your feet aren't going to get sore. You're going to have a great time driving around Rathdrum. So we'll call this the 2020 Drive Around Rathdrum. I'll turn it over to Mr. Worthen, and he can tell you what we're going to do today. Hey, have a good one, and I hope to see you again soon. Well, boys and girls, welcome to the Walk Around Rathdrum. Mr. Connor just turned it over to me. I think he's going to run off, take Bessie out for a drink or something, wander around town, see if we can find somebody to talk to. We're going to do this a little different than we normally do it. You're going to be in your bathrobe and pajamas, sitting in your living room, enjoying the Walk Around Rathdrum. We're going to go a few extra places that we don't normally go because they're too far for us to walk. And you're gonna get everything every third grader's got for many, many years. You're just going to get it virtually. So welcome to Walk Around Rathdrum, the virtual edition 2020. Hey, third graders, we made it to Rathdrum's historic Pine Grove Cemetery. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this cemetery, and then I'm going to give you a little assignment. I'll also give you the answers to the assignment, unless you want to come with your families here and do it on your own. This is the Pine Grove Cemetery. This is one of the oldest cemeteries in all of Kootenai County. Now remember, Kootenai County used to go from here all the way up to Canada. It's a lot smaller than it used to be, but it's one of the oldest cemeteries in the whole county. A man named A.W. Post owned the land and allowed burials on it. I think he had friends that he owned this land and said, well, yeah, a relative passed away, sure, you can go ahead and bury him there. Now he is related to the man who founded Post Falls, Idaho. Now A.W. Post was born in the country of Germany in 1845, a long time ago. And when he first came to the U.S., he settled in the state of Kansas. You might want to look that up on a map to see how far it is away from Idaho. In the 1880s, he moved to Rathdrum, Kootenai County, Idaho. Now his wife, Mary Post, he married a lady named Mary Post, and they had one son named John. Now, in 1892, A.W. named it the Pine Grove Cemetery, and if you drive by on the highway across from Super One, you'll see the sign that says Pine Grove. And then when anybody purchased a lot, it was $5 or $10. if you look right behind me here, that lot that has cement around it, that maybe cost $10. The family purchased that, and they allowed burials on that lot. They were given a deed to that piece of property, said that they own that piece of property, and no one was allowed to trespass on it without permission. Now, in 1980, his grandson, Frederick A. Post, gave the cemetery to the city of Rathdrum. And you know there's an old part, and then there's the new part in back as well. Now, there's a man buried here by the name of Charles Wesley Woods. I'm going to tell you I'm going to talk more about him in a little bit. He was one of the first settlers in Rathdrum. The town originally was Westwood, was named after him. There were quite a few war veterans from the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. The oldest man buried here, well, the oldest grave, is a man named Harry Nichols, who was buried here in 1886. Now, there's one headstone that just reads Grandma Hayes, 1848 to 1925. Nobody knows her first name either, at least we don't, just like Mr. Connor. Now, I told you there was going to be a little assignment, and there is, and I'll tell you right where all the answers are. This is the same Pine Grove Cemetery search that the students get for every year, and I'll read them to you, and I'll show you I'll show you the answers, unless you want to come on your own and do it on your own. Question number 1. Write the names of 3 people born in the 1800s. That's going to be very easy if you come out here to the cemetery. A lot of people born in the 1800s. Question number 2. In what year was Lyle Stubb Meyer born? You probably heard that name, Stubb Meyer. Yep, Stubb Meyer Park is named after him. I'm going to point the direction as to where Stubb Meyer's grave is, but you're also going to get a picture of it. That direction, if you walk that direction to the fence, you're going to see Stubb Meyer's grave over along the fence line. Stubb Meyer. The next question. List the day, month, and year of Betty Kiefer's birth. You probably heard of Betty Kiefer. There's a school named after her. She was a very famous school teacher in Rathdrum for many years. If you follow this road almost to the end and take a left-hand turn back that direction, you see that little building back there? That's the directory. Past that, past the next road, you'll find Betty Kiefer's headstone. And the question for her is, list the day, month, and year of Betty Kiefer's birth. She has a couple of relatives that work at John Brown. Mrs. Edwards is her daughter, and Mrs. Kiefer, who teaches first grade, is also related. The next question, I won't give you the question numbers. Find the grave of A.W. Post near the front gate and list his wife's first name. Actually, I already gave you the answer to that question, but look at that grave, that place, right there, A.W. Post grave. All right. Here's the one I'm most excited about. Find the headstone of Charles Wesley Woods. Write what's written on the headstone. Again, I'm going to point that out. We're not going to go back there, but you're going to also get a picture of this headstone. Over toward the fence, toward the end of the old section. You'll see where the new section is. Toward the end of the old section. In that section, you'll find the grave of Charles Wesley Woods. And that's the last question. Normally, I have the students thank their parent volunteers. Well, you thank your teachers when you get on Zoom or whatever you're getting your lessons from. You thank them for doing all this for you. Well, you know what? We are going to hit the road and we're going to head downtown. I'll see you soon at the Jailhouse. We are at the old Jailhouse. My son, who's doing all the camera work today, took you a little walk around it. I want to tell you a little more about this Jailhouse. The Jailhouse, let me read what it says here on the historical sign. Old County Jailhouse. The historic Kootenai County Jail from 1892 to 1908, restored in 2010. The jail housed all male and female county prisoners and the indigent and insane for the area from the Canadian border to south of Moscow between Montana and Washington. That's a big area. It became the city jail when the county seat was moved from Rathdrum to Coeur d'Alene in 1908. The building later served as a city hall, library, and city shop prior to the restoration in 2010. It was originally designed by renowned architect Isaac Galbraith. And you can see it's been restored. Some local people from Post Falls, the Jacklins, spent a lot of money to restore this building because for a while it was condemned. They were going to tear it down. On the Walk Around Rathdrum, we've gone in the jailhouse several times. Sometimes we don't get in there. But when you go through the front door, if you go to the right, there's the main room. That's where the jail office was. For a while, that was also the school district office many years ago. And when you come on a tour through here, if you look in that room, there's a big metal opening about as big as this piece of paper. And people wonder what that metal opening's for. Well, that was also the kitchen for the cooking of the food for the prisoners. And instead of just walking back into the prison and handing the food to them, they would have to hand it through that little area to prevent escapes and things. You go upstairs and you can see at the top, there's some bars on some of those windows. Some of those rooms were regular jail rooms. Some of those rooms were for people who had some severe mental problems that needed to be protected. And those rooms are still there. And then when you walk through the hallway, past the staircase, there's a big, huge jail door. It's very, very heavy. If you slam it on your finger, it'll probably take your finger right off. But then when you go inside of that, there used to be 8, let me make sure I got this right. There were 8 jail cells, and the jail cells were actually stacked on top of each other. So there was a person in the bottom cell and a person in the top cell. All of those cells are gone, but there is one cell that they brought in that was not in the original jail, but it was exactly like those jail cells. And if you come on a jail tour, maybe they can shut you in there, and hopefully they'll let you right out. But I think you'll enjoy the jail. Again, it was restored. This section that I'm standing in front of is a newer section, and the Historical Society sometimes rents that out for weddings or meetings. But it's great that our old jailhouse in Rathdrum was restored because, like I say, you know, the plans were to tear it down when it was condemned. I think you'll enjoy it. Plan this summer to take a tour of the jailhouse. All right, we're going to head down the street to where the first schoolhouse was. Boys and girls, where I'm sitting right now is where the first schoolhouse of Rathdrum used to be. This is not it. This is the Moose Hall that was built way after the schoolhouse. But the schoolhouse was destroyed in Rathdrum's first serious fire, and that's why it's no longer here. It was a one-room schoolhouse. That means kids from all over the area, from kindergarten age all the way up into high school age, were housed in the same room. One teacher, and the things were a lot different back then. No electricity, no running water. And they probably paid the teacher with apples or chickens or things like that, a little different than today. But again, this is where the one-room schoolhouse was that you learned about in your packet. And like I say, all of these buildings most of these buildings we're going to talk about today are from information that is in your Rathdrum history packet. So we're going to head all over to where the Catholic Church is, but I wanted to show you an old sign out there to show you what the speed limits used to be. Ryan, you want to go over to that sign where it says stop sign? The historical speed limit. We'll see you. Standing right in front of St. Stanislaus Catholic Church. It's a very beautiful building. I want to read something right out of the history packet to you, because before school was shut down, we didn't get this far, and so I just want to make sure you all hear this. This is a section called Old Churches. There are several buildings in Rathdrum that were over 100 years old. Two of these old buildings were churches that were built in the early 1900s. The Catholic Church right behind me, in Rathdrum, is one of the oldest brick buildings in North Idaho. The clay from the brick was made from soil found just west of Rathdrum in the Hidden Valley. The Catholic Church is still being used as a church today. It has a lighted cross on the top of the steeple. So the bricks that you see right there, they came from mud and dirt right over in Hidden Valley. Now I want to tell you a little bit about the Methodist Church since we're here, but we're going to drive by the Methodist Church a little bit later. If you know where Granny's restaurant, well, it used to be called Granny's, I think it's called Giorgio's now. The white building behind that is the Methodist Church. It says the Methodist Church is one of the oldest wooden churches still standing in North Idaho. The building is no longer being used as a church. It is now being used as a family home. The building is by the creek and is located behind Granny's restaurant, or Giorgio's restaurant. Since this church is very old, there are large metal cables between the two walls to hold them up. So we used to go in the Methodist Church on the Walk Around Rathdrum, and when you walk into the main worship area, there are two metal cables that actually hold the walls together. And I think what happened is there was a terrible bad snowstorm many years ago, and actually the roof started to sink down and the walls started to buckle, and so they put the cables to hold the walls up, and they're still there. But like I say, that is no longer being used as a church. But St. Stanislaus, when the coronavirus is over, people are going to start coming back here on Sunday and other days of the week as well. We're going to hit a couple of other historical buildings. In fact, while we're standing right here, let's catch a glimpse of this yellow house next to me. That house is the Musgrave House, and that is one of my favorite houses in all of Rathdrum. The interesting story with this house is that in the big fire that destroyed the schoolhouse that we talked about, the front of this house was burnt, and they thought about tearing it down, but they decided to rebuild it, and so the front of the house is rebuilt, but the rest of that house is from in the 1800s as well. It's a very, very beautiful house in Rathdrum. All right, I'm going to get in the car and we're going to hit a couple of other things here real quick. All right, that house that you just saw is the historic Heart House. The reason I like to tell you about it, why don't you move the camera over here a little bit? The reason I like to tell you about it is every time on the Walk Around Rathdrum for several years, we were on the Walk Around Rathdrum, we'd come by this house, we'd stop, we'd look at the old chain link fence, and a lady would come out with a container full of cookies. And I didn't call her or anything to say, do you have enough cookies for 75 third graders? Every year for like 4 years in a row. And she would always have the same ceramic container. I think it was like an old house or something. And she'd always have enough cookies for everybody. Well, one year we did our Walk Around Rathdrum and she didn't come out. And I had told the kids, I said, maybe the cookie lady will come out. Well, I found out later that she had passed away, and so that was very sad. But she made third graders happy for quite a few years. But in honor of the cookie lady, I brought a cookie today. It was really good. I'm sorry though, only brought one though. All right, the house you see over my right shoulder was the original house of Dr. Wenz. And he was a doctor that lived in Rathdrum for many years. He lost his house, his original house, and his original office in the fire of 1924. So when he decided to rebuild, he used different construction techniques. You can see the stucco on the outside. And so I think that was built originally like that because of the fire. Now, that was the pharmacy, Dr. Wen's office there. That used to be a two-story building, and part of it was destroyed in the second Rathdrum fire. And the owners were going to tear it down, but they thought, well, maybe we can save the basement or the bottom floor, and they did. And so that's now Nadine's restaurant, which is, I'm sure many of you have been there over the years. All right, we're gonna go down Main Street now. All right, boys and girls, remember the cookie house that we went by, the cookie lady house? It was called the Hart House. Well, it belonged to Warren Hart, and he built this property. He lost his first store in the fire of 1890, and he rebuilt in 1892, and then the building burned again in 1924. He rebuilt this building using the original brick, and much of that upstairs is a meeting room, but this used to be the Westwood Cafe. Now it is Westwood Brewing Company. But originally this was the first bank in Rathdrum. It was the Exchange Bank, and when we moved to Rathdrum many years ago, you could actually read Exchange Bank on the two little black things up above. This was a bank. Next door where the barbershop is was a hardware store. But I'm gonna have my son get another picture of this from back in the street so you can see what the upstairs looks like. And then we'll talk about the little building at the corner down there. All right. Little building you see at the end of Main Street, and we'll drive by that, give you a little better view. That was one of the original fire stations in Rathdrum. Not the first fire station, but one of the early fire stations. And so that bell, the Rathdrum fire bell that we're going to see a little bit later, used to be on top of that building. And so it's a lot different now if there's a fire in Rathdrum. If there's a fire in Rathdrum now, somebody sees the smoke, they call 911, and you've got the fire department there in 5 minutes. Back in the early 1900s, somebody saw smoke, they would ride their horse or their buggy down to the fire station. They'd pull on the cord that's attached to the fire bell, ring the fire bell. The volunteer firefighters would come to the fire station, hook up the fire wagon. They take it off to whatever was burning, and by then it was usually burned down. And that's why the two serious fires in Rathdrum destroyed most of Main Street, and that's why there aren't too many historical buildings here right now. All right, boys and girls, I'm real close to the place where Connor's cabin originally was. And my son will pan the camera out to this empty lot. I'll tell you where Connor's cabin was. This is right at the end of Main Street. Connor's cabin used to be right behind that silver building that you saw. It was a great location, close to the creek for fishing, good views for hunting, but it's no longer there. But you have a picture of Connor's original cabin in your packet. All right, we'll see you at the train depot. Hello again. When we were over at the Catholic Church, I talked about the Methodist Church. You just saw it, erected in 1905. No longer being used as a church, but it's got a beautiful stained glass window in it that's protected by another piece of glass. We'll drive by and show that to you in a moment. Also, on the front page of your Rathdrum packet is a little teeny picture of the building right behind me. That was Rathdrum's first railroad depot, first train depot. So the train tracks weren't always where they are now, they were over here. And this is the train depot. It's been here for over 100 years. But now somebody has purchased it and turned it into a house. They've added a whole front section, but it looks just like the whole historical section. But that's Rathdrum Historic Train Depot. We're gonna finish up the walk around Rathdrum at the fire bell. You know, in in your packet, we didn't get to Rathdrum's first fire bell, but I wanted to show it to you. This is something we don't normally do on the Walk Around Rathdrum because it's too far of a walk. We're in front of the new fire station, which is across from the Postal Service. Now, this historic fire bell was made in 1897 in the state of New York. The town of Rathdrum saved $400 to make this purchase, but it only cost $133. It was shipped to the railroad on the Northern Pacific Railroad, or shipped to Rathdrum on the Northern Pacific Railroad, which went into the depot that we just saw. At that time, Rathdrum was one of the oldest volunteer fire departments in Idaho. The bell was on a pole in Main Street for many years, and like I said before, somebody would pull a rope to ring the bell and volunteers would hear and rush to the old fire station. Now, from 1977 to the summer of 2012, this bell was in Rathdrum City Park on Highway 53, just down the road a little ways. And today it's in front of the new fire station. And we're going to finish the virtual Walk Around Rathdrum with a ringing of the bell. Let me try that again. 3 times. There we go. Wait. That's pretty loud, Well, boys and girls, Mrs. Shelton and Mrs. Eco, I hope that you enjoy the 2020 virtual Walk Around Rathdrum. It's about the 24th or 25th actual Walk Around Rathdrum, but this is the first virtual one and maybe even the best one ever. So good luck, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you soon. How you doing, Mayor?
I'm doing good. How's your kids doing?
Well, you know, we don't know. They're taking all homeschooling, and so that's why we're doing the Walk Around Rathdrum virtually this year.
So are they doing online then, strictly?
Online.
That's very interesting.
Yep.
Are you getting any feedback from them?
Well, since I'm retired, I'm letting the teachers handle that and everything. But I thought it was pretty cool. We're out doing the virtual Walk Around Rathdrum, run into the mayor and his wife.
There you go. We're out walking the fast and the furriest.
Which one's the furriest? Yeah. Well, you guys have a great time, and it's perfect end to the Walk Around Rathdrum. Students, I did not plan that. Just happened to run into the mayor at the end of the Walk Around Rathdrum, so that is a total bonus.